So just to get this started, how about each of you just, a quick 30-second who you are, what you do, what your company does, that kind of thing. And we just start with Ash.
Yeah, sounds great. Hi everyone. Yes, my name's Ash. I'm from England, if you can't tell. I moved to the Bay Area a couple of years ago. My last 10 years has been in dev tooling companies in one way or another, or AI. So actually all my companies have been in AI dev tooling, all open source as well. This company, we are building basically an inference engine that improves LLMs over time. So we look at your inference logs and fine tune it based on how it's being used in production. That's about it for me.
Hi everyone, my name is Cheryl Cheng. I'm a managing partner at M12, which is Microsoft's early stage venture fund. My focus is mainly on the application layer, a little bit of light infra. Really excited to be here and happy to be part of supporting these two great companies.
Well, hey, hello everyone, my name is Marko. I've basically been an entrepreneur all my life. Played a lot of Minecraft growing up, that's what got me to tech. And ended up selling a bunch of custom software and basically ran companies all my life. Started Kortix around 1 year ago. You guys are probably familiar with Manus. We initially launched as an open source Manus, and this is what provided a lot of initial growth. We've since developed into like a general purpose AI for work platform, which essentially allows you to integrate with like thousands of tools. You set up agents that do work in companies. It's used by over 400,000 users to date, and we're approaching the 20,000 GitHub star mark. So yeah.
And it's super impressive. Actually, I saw that, and even Ash, you all have quite a few stars too for your Winter. Yes.
Yeah, Kleiner, yeah, sorry, yeah.
Right.
It's an open source model that does a bunch of ML tasks. Yeah, I think it's had 5 million downloads now. It's pretty impressive.
That's pretty good. Maybe since we're talking about Agentic, I don't know if I put one of you on the spot. Does any of you want to take a shot at how you define Agentic AI, or what do you think of Agentic AI compared to say, how about this? What makes something Agentic versus just chatbot or RPA?
I think the general, most simple definition is essentially if we take it from an LLM perspective view, instead of just having a chatbot that you chat back and forth with, all of a sudden you have an LLM that is able to interact with an environment and get feedback back from it. So it perceives its environment, basically takes actions based on that, and increasingly with more autonomy. So at the core, the LLM interacts with the environment, gets feedback from the environment, and based on that decides its next action. And this gives a big variety of beautiful use cases.
Yeah, I'd say it's basically is it not just an LLM with a series of tool calls? It's a slightly more powerful version of an LLM. Ideally, it can self-correct, maybe write its own tools. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot of excitement around Agentic AI now. I'm curious if this would be a question for all of you, but I can start with Cheryl maybe. What gets you most excited about Agentic AI right now?
So I think I bucket it into 2 to 3 main categories. One is doing work that humans don't want to do. I don't think anybody enjoys reconciling checks against ledgers, and then so that work is kind of mind-numbing. And so if the agent can do that tirelessly, that's great. The other is work that humans cannot do. So you think about things in drug discovery and taking large amounts of 2D, 3D drawings, research, and just taking what humans may not even have been able to do or might have taken weeks or years to do and being able to compress that. Both of those bookends are actually very interesting to me because I think that there's a lot of economic rent to be had to be able to do those things. Very different impacts to the economy and to the workforce, but all of those are areas that we would look at from an enterprise impact perspective.
Drug discovery is pretty interesting. Whenever we talk about technology, we act like we're saving lives, we're building websites and mobile apps, so the people that are doing drug discovery truly are. How about, and actually, is there anything about Agentic AI now that gets you really excited?
Yeah, so I mean, I think that running companies is really fun at the beginning. Like when you've got like 3 to 5 people, it's great fun. And I can't wait to be able to run companies with 3 to 5 people in the future. So I'm looking forward to that actually. That should be really good. And yeah, also the other thing is that, as Cheryl was kind of alluding to, the agents don't really suffer from fatigue, which is quite cool. We'll see what happens with that.
Yeah, I mean, generally agents are amazing, right? It's the beautiful promise of having true like AI workers in a team. So I mean, I think like agents and AGI have both have the same motivator for me. It's just that we're automating away intelligence, and it enables us to work faster, work smarter, and work harder on a way vaster scale than we ever could. So like, yeah, I mean, also to the point, like, even as a small team, like basically as a solo guy, you can ship so much with agents. It's incredible. Like, yeah.
Yeah, if you could jump to some of the investment part around that, sure, are you seeing more and more how are you seeing the teammates that make up of like early stage startups? Are there more solopreneurs raising money? Is it?
I mean, there definitely are, and I think if you're a solopreneur, whatever that word is, and you're making lots of money, you don't need venture money at all, and you probably shouldn't take it. There's no venture leverage in what you're doing. Most of the companies that we see are bigger than that. They're even bigger than like 3 to 5 people. But we're seeing very small teams do a lot. And they have completely different internal processes. It's very easy for us as an investor to be like, tell me about your product and like, you know, like how is it built and what's the architecture? I started asking, tell me about the tools that you're building for your internal team. And like, how are you scaling your internal team? Because the IP that you are creating and the stack that you're creating as a founder is actually almost as important as like what you're using to architect the product that you're selling. Because that's where I think you're getting compounded leverage with AI. And so that's one of the things that we've been, you know, digging into. And it only works in certain types of AI companies, right? Like, but at the application layer, absolutely. We're also seeing still a lot of forward deploy. And I think we will continue to see that for a while in the enterprise.
Doesn't that change the risk profile of an investment? Because I know that if I go away, my company's going to do okay because Teresa, our chief of staff, will take over. But like, if it's just one person, is that difficult to invest in?
I mean, well, okay, so I should back up and explain. So at M12, we're a strategic investor. So while we absolutely want to make money and we will make money, we do think about where we can be strategic to the enterprise and the knowledge worker. So rarely do we come across like a one-person company that's like doing all of these things for the enterprise. I see most of those businesses happen on the consumer side. So I think those are just not a great fit for our investment aperture. But the risk actually, I actually think it's more that the floor keeps getting lowered. And like we hear all the time, like from CFOs and CTOs, like, well, my friend Claude and like 3 engineers could like build this, right? And so there's this increasing, well, we should just go and build this. And I think that is actually more of a risk. And so I know some VCs are having their associates or junior staff spend like a weekend with Claude trying to build like what they heard getting pitched. And like if they can build it in a weekend, like or a large part of it, then you do wonder like what might be the barrier to entry for those.
There was this startup, I think it was in Andon, they basically took one of the more recent YC cohorts and recreated all the startups in it using, you know, basically like a cloud, you know, renamed them and all, but yeah.
But in enterprise, the choke point is distribution still, right? And distribution is where you can have a moat. And I will shamelessly say why you should work with M12 and Microsoft, because we do well with the enterprise.
That's a good plug. Actually, maybe for Marko and Ash, how have your teams changed leveraging agentic AI? Are you building with, say, a cloud code or something similar? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, plenty, right? I think the biggest application, like internally for us, is obviously engineering, which is funny because you're building the AI to build more AI. So who knows? But yeah, essentially a lot of engineering. I mean, day-to-day workflow. Obviously, everyone, like if you run an engineering team and the engineering team is not using a coding agent today, you are most definitely crazy behind. But more than that is also like I think the more interesting automations which we run are a lot of them, like even right now we're asking ourselves a lot of the question like how can agents keep running while we sleep, right? Like how you haven't even had these beautiful coding subscriptions that subsidize so much compute. So like how can you squeeze out every last token so that when you are not actually on your computer it's running? So for the last couple of months we've been deploying we basically slightly re-engineered our observability stack. So we like real-time feed any errors, any things like every time we have an incident is marked by like 10 times. If we have the same error happening, we just have an agent automatically go out and resolve this problem. Resolve this problem both on our infra and pull up a PR if it's a code-related issue. So this is a big change in engineering that we've seen, and we truly have this across the board. Like we do it for PR reviews. We've also gotten like tremendous amounts of PR. Like as an open source project today, you get so much PRs, and it's very hard to like go through everything. So yeah, these are like some applications. Also venturing a lot into marketing. We're launching a new product. Like we're taking a part of our infra and productizing it right now. And built this marketing agent which essentially runs like a social engine. This is a fancy term of saying we just monitor a LinkedIn and X for like a specific term. So this is like in a field of like AI agent sandboxes, and basically every time there is a mention, we automatically go out and post and interact. So yeah, there's a bunch of more applications. These are some.
Yeah, I was chatting with some folks earlier about that. Now with all these tools, you could have smaller teams because there are things to help with marketing, with SDRs, all that stuff, and then engineering. Now, we were chatting with the CTO the other day, he said they threw away 80-90% of the code, something like that, because they just experiment, make something for everybody, make something else. How are you all?
Yeah, I mean, it's funnily enough, I've probably used Agile for like 10 years or something now, and for the first time ever, I think Agile's not working for us, and it's because you can move so fast. So you go ahead and do your sprint planning, yeah. You go ahead and do your sprint planning, and then you get like 2 days in and all of the 50 tickets are done. And also you get this issue now where engineers just step on each other's toes because everyone can make things so fast. So yeah, it's funnily enough actually the people side of it is quite tough. I mean, what I've done now is I've built like a Kanban board for managing my agents. So it's a project called Rocky. The developers don't let me plug it into our repo, but I keep asking. And it's basically just a Kanban board for managing Claude instances. But yeah, so everything from like booking flights to code changes, when I'm allowed to touch production code, is done through my own Kanban board.
Nice stuff. That's a good segue. We talked about how teams are using cloud code or similar for coding, the pull requests and all. You just mentioned your Kanban. How about Cheryl or Marko, are there any like personal agents that you're making, like agents for your own day-to-day work, or ones that you use, not necessarily make, or you use? Copilot.
I mean, the vast majority of agents that I run, I don't really run a lot of agents for my like personal life. Like I don't have agents necessarily book me flights, etc. Like all the agents that we run in a company are like 100% company specific. Yeah,
we built our own as well. I tried OpenClaw and then I accidentally connected it to my WhatsApp so that when people were messaging me on WhatsApp, my OpenClaw was responding, and I was like, okay, this isn't for me. It feels like a security risk. So yeah, we built our own.
Yeah, I've been using it just for like doing research on companies and everything. It's pretty nice. Cool. Are there any things that you think? There's a lot of excitement around agentic AI. Are there things that you think maybe aren't use cases that aren't right for agentic AI? Like you don't need to. There's everything.
I think generally the best tasks to automate today are all where like but not exclusively, like where you kind of have a vast amount of data on the inputs and the outputs. So like if you have a task that it's pretty much like, let's take like a recruiting workflow, okay? Like recruiting workflow, for the recruiting sourcing workflow, like requires you to like, or used to require you to go like LinkedIn Recruiter, do a query search, and then click on every individual human that you get in that list and evaluate like, is this person eligible for the type of job we're hiring for, or is he not? So the input and the output on what, and then like, are we going to shortlist this person, or are we not going to shortlist them? Like that's the final output, right? So this is a decently straightforward task that you can take and automate. So a lot of these cases are definitely the ones with highest automation potential across the board. Like also like, I don't know, taking insurance claims as an example. Like claims processing follows a pretty similar procedure. Every time you have these kind of SOPs, like standardized procedures that you can take, where you do have to apply intelligence within the process, these are definitely good tasks. But then also on the other end, like very open-ended tasks are also good, but you definitely need like significantly more human judgment in the loop. Like even a meme of like, go Claude, go make me $10 million or whatever. Like these are definitely tasks that fall short today for obvious reasons. But like for instance, what does it entail to make, I don't know, like $1 million? Like let's keep it a bit more realistic. Like it would essentially mean like actually spinning up a marketing agent, like I've just been talking about. So like I don't know, making $1 million might entail creating an agent that will specifically don't do anything else but like reach out to customer, like I don't know, do an outbound engine. So there's a lot of orchestration that is done by the human, but as long as you can set up these tasks, I think this is kind of I think that's clear.
You mentioned earlier that you have 20,000 stars on GitHub. How are folks leveraging your platform? Like what kinds of use cases do you see? Do you see like a pattern or?
It's honestly very broad. Like I kind of just listed some use cases that we keep seeing, but in the way we're positioned right now, like it's extremely broad. Like we do see like an across the board adoption of.
Any difference in say like a startup using it versus like an enterprise?
Oh yeah, a lot. I mean a lot. Like a lot of the enterprise adoption is way more boring than like also than what a startup might do, because for an enterprise the adoption is pretty much you have a workspace, which is running safely over infrastructure, being powered by Kortix, often also running own models. So it very much is like on the base layer, like how employees use it, it's like a ChatGPT Claude type use. And then of course you have like workflows, etc. Like I don't know, we have it's finance kind of like a fund. They run a fund of funds. So they used to have like these basically a bunch of financial analysts don't do anything else but sift through like 30 to 40 documents a quarter, analyzing taking out data to like create their final report, right? So essentially they run the base Kortix, which they kind of use as like an internal ChatGPT, but then on top they have these like custom workflows that they run to actually automate their work. But these like agents to set up, and these it does take like someone to come in once and like actually set them up and actively engineer and develop them, right?
And you mentioned models there. I'm curious, Ash, like, how do you help folks decide like what model to use or when to fine tune something versus take it off the shelf?
Yeah, so I mean that's kind of the main problem that we've tried to solve. So so the idea of Pioneer, this fine tuning and inference agent that we have, is basically you come and plug in your Opus 4.7 or your GPT-5 or whatever flagship model traffic you're using. We actually are giving away free inference on those models. It's all just fast QR code if anyone's interested. And then we just there is a QR code there. Thank you. You're better at this than I am. And the idea is we basically try to partition that into smaller models. So the question is, where is there an opportunity within your all of your Opus calls to use a smaller model that's more accurate, faster, and cheaper. And accuracy is really the one we go after, actually. But yeah.
Accuracy over the latency and
Yeah, that's generally what we're seeing is accuracy is king. That's what most people seem to be interested in right now, is just solving the problem in the best way possible.
yeah, that's fair. We were chatting just before this. You often hear folks say to use the sort of the larger model at the front of the agent to decide, and then I was on a call where the person was actually saying the opposite. So use a smaller language, I guess, model for latency. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, so I don't think model routing works super well. I was actually just chatting to someone about model routing, actually. But yeah, so I think the best way to do it is to build small models and then deliberately plug them in, especially if you're using them into production. It's just too risky to like let some non-deterministic model pick which model is going to be used for the use case. So yeah, I think it's easier to do that on the engineering side. Yeah, I mean, routing kind of ruined GPT-5, and I've heard on Twitter that Anthropic's 4.7 model is like the adaptive thinking thing doesn't work very well. So my guess is, probably stick with routing and just build the models and then engineer them in.
Yeah, and test which ones work better yourself. Talking about the models now, maybe going back a little bit to Cheryl, like earlier we were chatting about what people could do for a node. So is there something, where do you think startups should invest their sort of time or energy? Is it the application layer? Is it the models? Is it some other infrastructure? Like, what gets you interested?
So we invest across all of it, and even down to semiconductors. So there's need across the entire value chain. I do think that there's a lot of value to be had at the application layer, because that is a layer that's doing the work, right? And so everything else is the infrastructure, the rails, the compute, and so they're all important. But that last mile of closing the loop and doing the work is at the application layer, or the agentic application layer, if you will. I think it is, okay, so the area that I like, and this is just my opinion, so it's not really worth that much, is I actually think it's very difficult right now to sell into large enterprise that has a large group of developers, because they are all very eager to try building these things on their own. And there are reasons, there are very legitimate reasons why they do that, because there's a lot of IP that they just don't want to hand over to some small startup. But when you go into the mid-market, they don't have enough developer resources, and they're going to buy things to do. So I think that is kind of interesting in terms of an ICP. The other is like, what workflow are you owning? And so we've talked to hundreds of VPs of IT all the way to CFOs, and the IT guys are like, okay, there's some very core things to our organization that we're going to own and we're going to build, but nobody wants to build for the office of the CFO. Nobody wants to build the accounts receivable or the sales use tax application. It's just not a developer's idea of a good time. And so those companies, they have a moat, right? Because they can learn a workflow and a process, and they can get better over time with their data, and they're not in this existential threat of a developer saying, I've got Claude and Festino and other tools, and I'm going to try to build these things on my own. So I think those are kind of more interesting from an investment perspective. But again, this is just from my seat, which is looking at, if I put money in today over the next 2 to 3 year horizon, how much protectability does the startup have to be able to entrench themselves among a decent number of customers and defend that. So it's a little bit of a purely investor point of view, less of a design thinking need state perspective.
Any take on super agents versus a purpose-built agent, or a Smart management, that kind of thing?
I mean, I think it just depends on the application. I think in the long run, we have to get to long run agents that are doing a good chunk of human workflow, and just one small agent doing one thing is just a small click better than RPA, and so that is not that exciting to me. But yeah, I think that's where we have to go, and there's a bunch of infrastructure that isn't really developed yet to be able to get us to that end state. So, but yeah, there's so many jobs to be done.
You want to add something?
Yes, I think it's a very interesting conversation. Like, I definitely thought a lot about like what are modes in this space. Also with engineering mostly becoming increasingly more automated because you can essentially build every individual thing. But on this specific question as well, on like super agents versus like I'll say like niche down products, etc. I think even if we look at the landscape today, so if you look at like I'm just going to name drop a bunch of companies, right? Like I feel like Manus is GenSpark, and GenSpark is Lovable, and Lovable is OpenClaw, and OpenClaw is Claude Code, and Claude Code is Perplexity Computer, and Perplexity Computer is I don't know, Bolt New, and essentially I can go on and on and on and on and on and on. Technologically speaking, they're all pretty much we're all pretty much the same. It's also just Kortix. We're all pretty much just the same. You have an agents paradigm, you have skills paradigms in there, you have triggers. We are increasingly becoming more this interface like OpenClaw, like I don't know, you have a Telegram thing, etc. At the end of the day, it's an LLM in a loop that's doing work on a real computer on a sandbox environment, and the mode does completely the mode of an agent's capability to do a specific task. Completely comes down to the skill it's been taught. So 100% what Cheryl already said, it's operational knowledge that where one can win a mode. It's also data over time. So saying that one is in a company long enough and you've been exposed to the operational knowledge long enough. These are probably the things that can set one apart and that can set an agent apart. And then also things in products as a whole is I listed all of these companies. What kind of makes them a bit different is one, it's I'll say the cognitive architecture that might also be how is memory handled. So how are long-term memories handled? What memory is loaded into the short-term memory window? So there is minor differences there. It's the procedural memory in the I'll say in the part of skills, so workflows, which it knows. But then also on the complete contrary side, it's the product and UX of things. So also why Lovable is a better product to build web apps in than even the Claude Design or whatever, and everybody said, oh yeah, it's dead now because they released it, is because it's still a purpose-built product and user experience where you have a one-click integration with GitHub and you have the cloud database, etc. So there is a lot of things that compound. So yeah. Just a couple food thoughts.
I actually was going to say one thing. I am seeing a lot of startups build agentic solutions that mirror human processes. They're just doing it more, extra, I guess. But if you were to say, if humans never existed and they were just agents working with other agents, would you have designed the same processes in your enterprise that you did because humans were there? And if the answer, so what I'm seeing a lot is people are rushing in to build agents as opposed to rushing in to rethink agentic processes before they build the agents. And I think the super agent is going to be the one that has actually a very different workflow process, and it's not just doing the same thing that I would do but can work 24/7.
Yeah, I think there's a timing component here as well. So my last company was a dev agent. We were the first commercial dev agent. Casa copied our first website. Shout out to Casa. But anyway, the truth is it was just way too early. This was before. I think this was maybe just as GPT-3 came out, and you couldn't do anything. Our agent could pretty much just change a README and maybe write a unit test. It definitely couldn't do anything more advanced than that. And now you can basically, now dev agents are just ridiculously good. It's crazy. I honestly, probably shouldn't say this, but I definitely don't even open my IDE and check the code half the time anymore. I'm just yeah, it's probably doing a good job. So I do wonder if one day the super agent thing will just be a case of the models get so good that suddenly they're super intelligent and actually they can handle these workflows that we used to have to build in with humans. Not to be a hater, but
I mean, yeah, 100%. You're completely spot on. Also, the path to true AGI, there's like one super general agent. It's like, to me at least, it's quite clear. Like even if we just had the current models and better compute, like I'm talking like 10,000 tokens per second compute and not like 100, like when we run Opus today or the GPT 5.5 it's on. Even then, like you could the intelligence output is so crazy fast that you could literally like one-shot everything, and the feedback loop even to you is like instant because you just say it and it's right there. And then yeah, of course, like also with the general agent, like what I feel like what we're missing with like the big from the big model labs is still like I mentioned like cognitive architecture. Like everyone is kind of from like company to company implementing them themselves. But the moment we have like even on the model, like on the AI lab side, you essentially have like the agents have proper long-term memory on their end, and all the data they generate, like like right now, if I even wanted to implement like a self-training loop, I would essentially just analyze all the data that's coming out, and I generate like new procedural, semantic, episodic memories. But the moment the model labs take that into their into their stack as well, you essentially get all the skills and all the things that you would have built by hand in the model by default. So yeah.
You know, sorry, on that note, there is something interesting going on with agents right now, which is, so we sell to a lot of agent companies, obviously, because we're doing inference. And you know, there really does not seem to be a framework right now that's winning. Like every agent company is like, no, we build our own. Which that actually shocks me.
Okay, I was building my own agent framework for 2.5 years called Agent Press. And this was my holy grail. Like I would carry it, I would like, fuck this agent framework, this is all I use. But I actually killed it. We actually killed it 2 months ago, and we completely replaced it with open code. Because we just switched, because like the paradigm, like what coding agents have done for coding is the same paradigm that's gone like coding agents for knowledge, it's going to happen for knowledge work as a whole. So yeah, we just switched completely to open code, and we use open code as a framework.
And
also, we have like full hooks to plug in with the plugins. Like everything that we have custom, we just make an open code plugin, and it's beauty.
it seems similar in like their previous role. At least half of the startups built something homegrown. They might start with a framework to get going, but then quickly move to something else.
Yeah.
Can I say something on the agent framework?
I mean, it's in the simplest form, like every agent framework, like what is an agent? Like we were like talking about in the beginning, but at the end of the day, it's an LLM that outputs tokens, and then you parse the tokens, or outputs directly a tool call, and then you parse the tool call, you execute the tool call, and you add the result back into the thread. So that is the state. And this is essentially that's also the reason why I feel like the vast majority of companies are building their own agent frameworks. It's because it's like the most simple, like the core primitive you do want to have control over.
Like we're on this technical note here, how do you all feel about the interoperability, like A2A, MCP? Like, do you have preference over one of these? Or there's a lot of hype around MCP, like maybe in the past year, I don't know.
Yeah, so a lot of our engineers and researchers are younger than me now. I'm getting old, I guess, which is depressing, but anyway. And they told me that MCPs are for boomers, so I don't think we're allowed to use them anymore. I think they're saying skills is...
What's the end of that question?
I might be the age of your engineers, I would agree.
Good stuff. I just have a couple more, and then we'll open it up for folks. First, it goes back a little bit where I was asking at the beginning about what you're doing and using any sort of agentic AI yourself. We talked about the marketing, engineering, and all that stuff. How are you seeing like agents having an impact on your day-to-day life? Like, to me, it reminds me of it was a boomer thing, the .com days, and how things have changed. Things are changing sort of rapidly, and just the excitement. I'm curious, how's it impacting you all's days?
I can go first. I mean, it's a lot easier for a lot of stuff. Like, so as I mentioned, pretty much every email, every flight I book, basically everything I do now there's an LLM involved. I mean, yeah. It also is a little bit creepy that I've kind of just offloaded all that cognitive load and I'm trusting this machine, but yeah, right now it's definitely a lot easier than it would have been to without agents for sure.
Same, it's insane. I mean, by far the biggest impact is definitely engineering. Anything like coding has changed forever. Like you said, you're not looking at code anymore. Like I think, by the way, like the vast majority of my smartest friends have said the same thing. I think it's just true. Like the velocity in which you can move. Also, very cool hack if anyone is coding here. Just use the CLIs of products. Like you can close loops. Like I hated using any infra product because it has like, I don't know, we were using AWS and it was horrible. But then like we switched using the CLI and it was just beautiful because like the agent just understands and just gets it. So yeah, what I want to say is I don't touch any dashboards anymore. I don't look at my code anymore. I just talk with a little chat input to bring my visions to life. So my life has changed for the better, I guess.
On that note, by the way, I found out, I was talking to a friend of mine who's a YC founder, and I was at their house, they were cooking dinner, and they were talking to their agent the whole time through like a little lapel mic.
Oh, I do that as well. I'm not the lapel mic, but I have Whisper, and I just...
Yeah, so this is apparently a thing. Apparently if you speak your prompts, they're like way better.
Wow, you're just so much faster. Like you can speak...
More context.
Yes, like I just blurb everything in it and I hit enter, and then like I have like 5 threads open at the same time. I feel like this is where I max out though. I can't do more than 5. I guess that's what all my working memory can do. And then I'm working on multiple things parallelly, and it's like it's insane. I think the biggest thing also with that is just like you gotta create the feedback loops, like the environment loops, in order for it to be like I literally like I don't like unit tests or anything. I just tell it to do end-to-end tests, like test the things in the same way a human would do. So like if we're implementing an API or whatever, it's literally just running every single curl request and every single API request from top to bottom, so it gets the direct feedback, and then I just parallelize across 5 sessions, and that's how I work.
You mentioned you're using the CLIs. Is it all the same CLI or it's different ones?
I mean different ones for different products. Like I don't know, like we started this, like we're as I mentioned, like we're productizing a part of our infra. This is also an interesting, you asked about enterprise versus startups. I think there's a benefit for startups today because they can build their product, like their companies AI native from day one. And there's actually a lot of things that go into it. And AI native basically just means having the context and the feedback loop available for an AI to use. So like our observability from day one is like hooked in a way where it will literally just talk back. Like everything just spins up automatically. We use we can just directly via CLI talk to our infra. Yeah, if there's any error, if there's any triaging, it just does it automatically.
Just on that note as well, so you know, we recently launched Pioneer a few weeks ago, and you know, it was pored over the UI design for about 2 months, went back and forth and argued internally. And then the first question we get when we launch it is, where's the CLI? And then the number 1 page that's viewed on the site is the docs. So actually, probably wasted our time building UI.
Yeah, I was at an event where this going back a couple of years ago. It was in a restaurant in Japan where he pretty much thought the way we interact with websites and all was going to change dramatically because of agents. You didn't necessarily use the website, but I think the one part you miss is the sort of serendipity or like, you know, discovering something you weren't actively looking for.
Can I disagree?
Yeah.
So as like the extremely non-technical person sitting here between these two, I will never live in a CLI. It would be confusing to me. It would take me too long. I would get frustrated.
That's what agents do.
My agents would, but like I want an interface that is simple, like easier, and I actually don't necessarily want as much choice as you think I might want. Like, you know, just giving me like a blank screen to be like, make yourself an agent to go do something. Like, I don't like.
By the way, we ran a consumer motion for a few months. The biggest problem is this blank slate problem.
Yeah,
blank canvas. Like, what do we do with this?
I don't know what you.
Wow,
now,
thank you for AGI, but what do we do with it?
Right. Now, in engineering, I understand, right? Like, I mean, like, you were given, like, these set of things to build. So I actually think that whether people navigate a website the way they used to or not, like, that might change. But at the end of the day, like, all of us are sitting here in this, like, very, very, you know, tip of the, like, distribution curve of technology adoption. Like, the rest of the world and, like, even our country is not in that spot, right? Like, and so when we think about, like, what would I build agents for? Like, people are like, oh, you could shop faster. And I'm like, but actually, I enjoy shopping. Like, I enjoy, like, reading and, like, processing the information on my own. I don't necessarily want you to do all of it faster for me. You know, maybe reordering the toilet paper, sure, but like for some things, like I actually enjoy that process. And one of the things that I am concerned, so how I use it is on all the tasks that I actually don't want to spend a lot of time, AI can help me compress that. But I'm always very wary of like whether AI has compressed my work down to such a small amount of time that it has traded off that last 20% of time that I needed to spend to be truly creative in coming up with new solutions. And because I'm so mesmerized at the speed of what it can get me to, I didn't go through the iterations, and like sometimes that boredom of like, oh my God, like I have to do this again, like it actually forces me to be a little bit more creative in like my thinking of a problem. So that's one thing that I'm trying to like moderate a little bit, but I don't think as like.
By the way, I definitely agree. I feel like a lot of the times, like even day-to-day work feels like brain rot.
Yeah.
Because you're just spamming like also into a chat input bar and like 5 different threads or whatever.
Yeah.
So, and you lose exactly what you said. Like I completely agree. I feel like I'm curious whether this is going to go away, because like but like if it's going to become either worse, like when we get higher token speeds, because every time, ideally if you don't have the waiting time in between, maybe it will amplify creativity to another extent, although of course you're not in the intricacies and the details anymore.
Right. It could, because because you go over the arc to the other side.
Yes.
Right.
But every idea, every thought you have is boom, it's right there. Like it's probably fast. Yeah.
Yeah, you can test it.
Yes.
Maybe that's a good segue for the last question I asked for each of you is, what are your predictions for Agentic AI for the rest of the year? You know, is there anything you think might happen, or you hope would happen, or something you'd like to see? Maybe let's start.
I think increasingly more autonomous agents. Over the next years, more autonomous companies. There's always going to be like a healthy split, well not the healthy split, I don't know what the healthy split is, but like I'll say like a 80 or like 80-20, 70-30 split of agents to humans. Yeah, it's where the future is headed. Like intelligence is getting automated. We are high-level orchestrators, and our taste and ability to judge is what matters the most. There's this like there's this interesting paper. It's like it's called like some simple economics about AGI. It basically argues that the main blocker to scale is like human verification capability. And even right now, in times where like intelligence is more available than ever, like hiring the right people, weirdly enough, is like no matter what's happening, you still need to have the best of the best of the people, so your verification abilities stay very sharp. So yeah, these are some thoughts for the future.
I think we're going to start to see a sharpening of measurement of ROI on agentic AI and AI in general. So like, are the tokens that we're burning worth it? Like, you know, are we, right now I think we're in a zone where we're just trying to create behavior change, and so organizations are like, okay, let's try different things. I think we don't have great, I don't know if they're FinOps tools or like exactly what you would call them, but like there aren't great measurements to tie end outcome back to should that have been an agentic workflow or not. And so I think there'll be a little bit more scrutiny on that, because we're probably going to be in a capacity constrained world for a little while still.
Yeah, I mean, we were in the office the other day, and my colleagues are here tonight, so they can vouch for me. I received a little heart-shaped rock in the mail, and I thought I'd had a secret admirer. I got quite excited. It turns out my agent, who has access to my credit card, bought me a heart-shaped rock. It does, yeah. So my agent does have access to my credit card. So I think proactivity is actually what we're going to start to see, right? So assuming that the agent has access to all of your signals, meaning like all of your mail and all of your email and all of your instant messages and whatever, it's probably going to be able to like take pretty good proactive actions. So like I shouldn't really need to ask it to book a flight. Like it should just know that I'm going to go on a flight, and it should book it for me. And it should know what hotels I usually stay at, so it should just book that for me. So yeah, probably we actually released a paper last year on proactivity, and I think that's going to be quite big this year. Yeah.
Definitely, that'd be awesome. I want to open up if anyone in the audience has any questions for the panel. Anyone? Oh, yeah.
I would be curious to hear from each one of you about business models. How do you see the embrace of agentic AI changing the business models? So for example, Ash, you mentioned about improving inference. How do you measure that, and how will the industry change its business model beyond just the value of tokens? What do we see, what can we expect in the change of business models of just volume, value, technology, embrace of this? What can we expect from the business model, commercial change in the next few years?
I mean, I can go first on this one. So, yeah, I think maybe some of you guys have alluded to this, but I think a couple of years ago it was just like we need to implement AI, right? Like that was the thing, like especially from enterprise. And I think now it's getting to the point where it's like, okay, we need to actually have some reasonable like cost per token or a reasonable like intelligence per token. How do we measure it? I mean, we measure it just on cost, latency, and accuracy, right? So the way that we tell you if we're providing value on Pioneer by inferencing your models is how we make them cheaper, faster, or smarter. But I think that's like the biggest thing that we're seeing now is that a couple of years ago, enterprises were just being told by their boards that like, hey, you need to go build this thing, and now it's like, okay, you need to now make this thing not cost $20 million a year. So that's probably like what's coming this year, I think, at least in enterprise.
I think that companies are going to really change their organizational headcount. So, every department, finance, sales, marketing, engineering are going to need different headcount allocations. And sometimes it's definitely going to be less headcount, but it might just be very different headcount because AI can do a lot of things that before you had an army of like 100 people doing, and that will fundamentally change. On the other hand, I think you're gonna see, I go back to like drug discovery for a moment, like pharmaceutical companies are throttled by the number of drugs that they have in their pipeline, right? But now if you can use AI to create, 10x the number of targets and be able to recruit for your clinical trials like 100 times faster. I mean, like, just imagine the throughput that could come through, even if you are only developing a therapeutic for 10 people, right? Like super rare disease. It opens up business models that were never available before because the return on investment just wasn't there. So the power of that, of being able to tap the long tail, if you will, in anything, just could open up a lot of business models that previously were not available.
Were you asking about like business models applicable for our companies, or like measuring business outcomes and how to price it? Just
your choice. How do you see the industry accepted business models changing because of the adoption of agentic AI? So for example, what we value today in the term of tokens, will intelligence tokens, will that be a value in 3 years, or is there something else that will be enabled by agentic AI?
I don't think so. I think increasingly we are running towards like outputting more tokens. Tokens are getting cheaper. Whether the raw amount of tokens outputted is a sign of like intelligence or business value created is obviously like does not necessarily have to correlate or be true. So I also believe that we're gonna somewhat, like we are already seeing like the commoditization of models. So like even the big AGI labs, like obviously we use amazing models from Anthropic and OpenAI and everyone, but they are heavily subsidized. Like even the reason why we can spam code every day and like open Codex and whatnot is because like on a $200 subscription you get like $5,000-6,000 worth of credits. That's also the reason why they ban their like third-party usage. So business models for a lot of these companies will change. I think a lot of the models are also driven towards like near zero cost, because at the end of the day, if we're just paying for energy and you have like these gigantic open source models that are coming out of the Chinese labs, like even if their usage is not very high today, which is also just like a serving question, So yeah, for this for the raw I think raw compute and raw tokens are going to become increasingly cheaper. So and then the question by the way, I'm going on and on about because I don't know at the end of the day. It's just a big question on what are modes in the future, and I think pricing business outcomes, etc., will probably for a company that offers an agentic solution be a very viable path of pricing. Even our pricing right now, I would not say is great. In the way we price it, because we do a charge upon credits, plus we take a cloud fee, etc. It's probably not the most maximalist thing on it. Yeah.
Anyone else have up the top there?
Yeah, everyone wants to know what's the future of AI, but let's ask it simple, that how you see your life will change in 12 months. So now you said that you run 5 agents in parallel doing coding and feedback loops, but what are you going to be doing in 12 months?
Hopefully just orchestrating, as I am now, but even more than I'm doing now. If I want essentially agents running in every business function truly that I have, I think coding is the most impacted one today. Increasingly, I just want to be on the high level and say where the direction is. It's also a very interesting question just with human employees and agents, because I've described this to friends as prompt degradation, because I feel often I give a prompt to a human, to someone I work with, and then I have to oversee what the human did, but then I could have also just directly prompted the agent. I do believe that in 12 months down the line, my feedback loop and back and forth with the agent is going to be even faster than it is with the human, and that will also change a lot of the things that I have to focus on. I think truly hiring for the right people, and with that even coaching your team is more important than ever. So I do see a lot of my focus shifting into that over the next years. I think it's funny. I think it's all about people. Truly, it's so funny. Everything is about agents automating everything, but you still need 20 to 30% of the people who are going to be orchestrating and verifying and managing. So yeah.
I have one more question. Anyone over here? Yeah, in the hat. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Marko. You say you're running 5 agents right now. How does trying to parallelize 5 things influence what you work on specifically? Are you trying to get tasks that are close together so that you don't have to jump around? Then you have worries about things stepping on each other's feet.
Very good question.
Are you doing things that are maybe not as important? I find myself working on some tasks that aren't that important because I think they'll be easy for me to use, and I can use up my tokens, and that's a bad thing. And it's it's just a complete change on how we are supposed to focus and think about things.
Yeah.
You're supposed to focus on the task, and now you have to multitask. Yeah.
I mostly touch things that are fairly unrelated or slightly related, they are in the same code base, etc. I've also set up a bunch of mechanisms, so I don't use I do use Claude again now, but directly. But I have a custom open code setup, so where it automatically will spin up a work tree, and I use something called Portless, which essentially makes the parallelization between my coding agents better. If I work on a task that's basically touching the same files, the same things, and then it start up another thread to merge it. So I'm definitely parallelizing tasks that are not 100% adjacent, but if they are if they are in a similar field, I basically do the merging after.
Well, thanks for this. I appreciate the panel. Spending the time here. It was pretty interesting. I learned a lot myself. Thanks everyone for coming here. Let's give the panel a round of applause.